Welcome back to Captain of Industry. My name is Nilaus and we are here. I can't stop playing this game. I don't know, it's just so wonderful to watch this massive train network. So what I'm going to do today is I am going to make a train tutorial. I think that I have enough experience by now to explain some of the finer details and some of the more advanced details of the train system, because I am going to say it, of all the factory systems out there, Captain Industry has the best train system. That says a lot, because Factorio is what is the gold standard, and I have to say that Captain Industry just does it better. And we're going to dive into it. So we're going to talk about infrastructure, we're going to talk about features, we're going to talk about sort of designing stations and train lines, and we're going to be talking about the train network, the works like logistics train network, and how it just kind of it ties the base together so nicely. And it just means that, well, yeah, I'm going to build train bases from now on, and we are going to be doing that in the next time we're going to start a new Captain Industry playthrough. It's going to be heavily train based, because it's just so much better. And now the base you're looking at here is my base for my Let's Play series. There's a whole Let's Play series on YouTube and Twitch, for that matter, to go through if you want to see how we built this massive factory. So all the designs and the save games are available to Patreon supporters, so if you want to just plop down the blueprints that you see here, or just steal any of the design from the base, then feel free to do that if you are supporting on Patreon. Right, so as the train is pulling into the station, this is our food train. This is kind of a unique one, which also just completely solved our food issues and also the food logistics very easily. Let's start by diving into the infrastructure, and of course with these kind of videos, if you like it, hit the like button, leave a comment below. Maybe there will be like a follow-up with something I've forgotten. So let's take a look at the infrastructure design. This part is going to be pretty brief, because you can play with it yourself, and I would imagine that if you're looking for a train tutorial, it's not like the very basics of how do you lay tracks, but there are just a little bit of details to it. Basically, if we look at it, the laying tracks is really neat. I think that's very, very good. You've come up with a good design. What I have decided is that I am driving in the middle of these blocks, and I am using, this is the largest curve. There are 3 curve sizes, and they will then affect the, let's see, the speed of it. If they are like, this will slow down quite a lot, it'll slow a little bit, and this big one will not slow down at all. So if you want the fastest traversal of the train network, then you want to keep these big loops. What I've designed is I've designed a build like this, where you can see, let's take the groundwater out. You can see here that this fits into the middle of one of the big tiles, and that is actually how I want to do, or how I'm doing all of my network. So because this means that I can take this thing, and then I could actually just plop it down and put the next one next to it here, and I know that they would fit exactly. I think it's important for a train design or train network to have some common rules, so that you can use the same designs. Some people will just sort of sneak the designs, the trains wherever they can, and go up and down. I think this is better. I've also been looking at this one, which is smaller, and this might actually be what I'm going to use in the future. I think this is looking nicer. I don't know if I can make it with the elevation so they can go through, but I think this is the nicest build. You can see it takes only three of the big squares. This one takes 1, 2, 3, 4 of the big squares. So it's smaller, and it does have a little bit of slowdown, but if I want to do elevated tracks, then it doesn't matter. When it comes to elevation, you can also see there's a slow slope here. When laying tracks, we can adjust both the minimum cycle, minimum track radius here, or we can do this for the elevation if you wanted like a soft slope where they don't slow down, or a steep slope which doesn't take so much space. So that depends on your design. Now my design for my train network is that I've elevated to level 6, and I think that's a really good way, because if you have the busy part of the network, such as over here, now it's not so busy, if we keep it in level and bring the belts over the tracks, then you're going to have a lot of crossings for the trucks, because I still use a lot of trucks. And crossing the trucks is not very efficient. It doesn't have a lot of throughput to cross the tracks, which means that many of the places, such as intersections like this, and particularly like this intersection, would just not be able to get any trucks passing by. So I like the elevation to level 6. The disadvantage is, of course, that every time you sort of branch off, you have to make a slope, and then it slows down going into the slope. And we'll probably, well, we will see that now. So as it goes out, you can see it slows down. Not a lot, and this is why I'm like, I don't really care. But it does have that disadvantage that anything you build, anytime you build a train station, you have to sort of have the T intersection, the branch off, and then you have a slope, which means that it gets a little bit further pushed away from your main line. If you're keeping it all on level, then you can keep it closer. But I think that this is sort of more of an evolved part where I'll take the main line, keep it at elevation, and then any branches will just start by going down and then stay at level, because there won't be that much traffic here. The only traffic that we have is the stuff going into this station. The only traffic we have here is the stuff going into this station. So using these intersections at level isn't really going to be that big of a deal. But keeping the main lines here free from in-level intersections is great. And here's also like a plea to the developers: please make a road bridge across rails. That would be so good. Like the normal, like these ones, but one that actually spans over a rail at ground level. That would be so nice, because you can't make rails because you can't make tunnels, and it's, man, just please give us that. That would be such a big help. Right, so that's my take on it. I really like the elevated rails because I like trucks, and especially in the beginning you will need trucks, and especially, well, later on you still need trucks. So let's look at something that is the best part of the train system. The stuff that isn't there. There are no signals. This train system is signalless, which in most cases is amazing, because it means that we don't have to deal with stupid signals. And they are really annoying to get all your change signals and follow signals and all that stuff, getting those sorted. But on the other hand, sometimes because of this, of the lack of signals, they do actually block each other for quite a distance. I was so kind of hoping to see something around this location, because they kind of can get stuck here when the base is really busy. It's not very busy right now, so it's not that big of a deal. But they do have sort of, it would be nice to maybe have some special signals that you could put in if you needed to. But everything seems to flow. But it does have like a cap on the throughput, because there are no signals. They sort of have to reserve some space in front of and behind, and when you click it, you can also see the path that they have chosen, and that path is clear. And here, yeah, onto the next station. So they kind of have to clear that. It's not a big deal, but it's something to keep in mind. But it makes setting up the train system so much nicer, because you don't have to deal with an endless amount of change signals, and in this area, like, oh, there's no room, and all that stuff. So very, very good move that they managed to get rid of it. Then there's another feature of stations, and that's really weird. And I kind of, it felt so unintuitive, but it's really cool. I guess we have to look at one of the newer stations I built. This is kind of a template station for a mine, and where I have the primary thing from the mine going into 8 stations. Then I have the rocks going into 4, and then dirt going into 2. That's kind of a good balance. And then I just make the whole thing here. Now in Factorio, you'd kind of need a train to sort of park at the start here, but they don't really care about parking at the start. So 2 things can happen with trains, is that the trains can be longer than the station, such as if they're coming in to pick up dirt, then the train is longer, then it'll go in here and then fill the first part, and then move forward and fill the next part. But also the fact that they don't need to adjust or align to the entire station. So in this case, if this was Factorio, the train would always stop here, and that meant that I would sort of need to have, if I was only loading at this location, it would just kind of have a train that was really long just to get these ones here. And that's not necessary in this case. You can actually come in and park at a partial part of the station, which is insanely amazing. When you sort of realizing it, I go like, why is no one else doing that? And I think we have a train coming in. This is picking up sand, so it's coming in, and it'll go around here. Let's see, can I? No, I can't even get any other ones to sort of trigger to get in here. Why not the dirt though? Shouldn't the dirt also come in? No, almost coming in with dirt, but not quite. We'll go through the train system later on, and then it comes in and it loads, and then it goes. So it only parks at the locations here, because each of these are identified as sand, and then it goes out. Sweet. We'll talk about how to do the scheduling afterwards. I also wanted to show what it looks like when a train comes in and only picks up at where the train is longer than the station. and it doesn't even align at all. So this one is coming in to pick up dirt, and then you can see it comes in and just unloads the first, or loads the first one. Then as that one fills up, it just moves forward. So it doesn't have to align to the station. It doesn't have to be equal length. It's beautiful. And then the second train will be a sand train that comes in, which will of course have to wait. So when designing train stations, you have to think about whether it's something you want to be loading in parallel or sequentially. Here, because I'm loading sequentially, when it comes in to pick up dirt, it'll actually slow down everything else because it's a relatively slow load, because it has to load one wagon at a time instead of loading all wagons at the same time, which is going to be happening as this one departs. There we go. And this one comes in. Look how close they can actually go. Isn't that amazing? And then this one comes in and loads sand, which should load a lot quicker because it can load all of it at once. And yeah, goes up to 2,000, about 2,000, right? There. And then it departs. So that loads so much quicker. But an alternative way is when you have two things that are coming in at pretty high ratio each, then you might want to have a design more like this, where you have two parallel stations. Oh my god, where's my asteroid? Someone killed my asteroid. Oh, that's crazy. Oh, that's funny. Well, there used to be an asteroid here, but that's gone. Okay, we need to dump another asteroid here then. That's actually funny. Okay, that's weird. Well, we need to dump more asteroids then. And that will come in here. And but we will then have two stations that in parallel that can load parallel, because there might be higher throughput if you have like a mixed iron copper station, for example, or something like that. But for mainly I'll do these designs like this, where I have a primary and then a secondary for rock and a tertiary for dirt. And either it can be loaded on the side like this, or it can be loaded from the end like this. And those two designs are here, and those are of course available. I think those are sort of neat designs to get going. You could have more boxes if you like it, like in the case I do here, we have multiple boxes because I just wanted to get rid of my asteroids, so I could sort of have a stockpile of uranium and feel safe that I have enough uranium. Okay, so let's design something else. Let's design a train station and then a train line. So here's a train station. Again, also this is doing parallel because I knew there would be so much rock that I wanted it also to be parallel here, and then the dirt would just be small amounts. So all of those are differences. Let's look at this one because this is like a default one. This one is over here. We're going to be using, these are the two different ways of making train lines. And we're going to be first going through the train lines and then going through the network. And yeah, so that means let's start by looking at how you set up stations. So for example, in this case, we have a station here. The way that it's designed or knows that it's limestone is because all these places here are set to load, and then you select the item coming in here. So when you build a new one, as you build it, you get to select what is coming in, and anything that is not selected will then be blocked on the train, or if you leave it empty, it'll probably be like whatever comes in first. Then you have to, that's the only thing you have to set up for this one here, each of these locations. But when you put the station in front, here is something I did a lot in the beginning, and that is build a fuel station as part of this. That's a separate type of station. Don't make it into a liquid station. Doesn't make it into a fuel station, liquid fuel station. Then it comes in, and it doesn't actually have to be right here. If it can be before, it can be after, it can be anywhere, because it'll just go there and stop, reload, and then proceed is to the other ones. But if you put it here, then it can load the fuel while it's also loading the limestone. So once we have this one here, which is connect additional storage, which is a really cool idea, because there are some parameters here. You could do the train limit, which works exactly like Factorio, if that makes sense. Then that means that this is how many trains can be inbound to this station at any given time. So in this case, I'm going to say 2, because I can have one train parked, and I can have one station waiting, or one train waiting. But if I had 2 trains waiting, then it would sort of stretch out and block the other tracks. So I want to make sure that this one never gets assigned more than 2 trains if I have many trains in the network. So that's important. Then that doesn't say any train lines here. We can mark it as a only allowed train whose locomotives use one of the selected fuel types. Yeah, okay, so you can hard code it to only be coming in here, but yeah, I don't think I've needed that. Then you can use this slider to say that it's only open when it is below, or it's over this threshold. So since it's a unload station, then it basically says, oh, I don't want it to come in here unless there is at least something. Maybe you want to use this to also distribute it locally, and you don't want to be having it being taken out by the train. I actually have one of those cases here. Let's see, that one, where I keep some of the rock in here, and because of that, I don't want all of it to be taken out. I want only the trains to come in when it's above a certain threshold. So that's what this one does, is saying, okay, only above a certain threshold do I want the trains to come in, because you might want to keep a buffer here, you want to be keeping it for whatever other reason. And you do that by sort of selecting multiple facilities that sort of are connected, and they will be counted as part of the train station storage, even though they're not in directly in the storage, which is a really, really good idea. Like, I love that idea. I love pretty much everything they've come up with. So this is not having any train lines. So what we need to do is we need to make a train line that goes from and we also have a lime unloading station, which is down here. This one is just basically saying, I want to fill it up all the way up, but you can do the similar thing and only fill it up to a certain level. I'm also saying 2 trains here. I could take more, but 2 trains are fine. Since we don't have any, then it's fine. And it's also linked to that station, that box here. So this is a very simple build, and it's not really coming out very quickly, so it's not really anything to worry about that it runs out. So let's go to another thing. Like, the train yard was kind of confusing to me, but here it's... oh, that's interesting why that's the case. Yeah, so we need to make a new train line. So we go into this one here, the train lines and network. We create a line or a network. So we create a line here, and we call that, we give that the limestone icon, because we want to make a line that is for limestone. That's probably easier just to select. So there are no trains and no schedules. So you click here and you say, where does it want to go? It want to go to the pickup location. That's the limestone. Yes. And the other one is there. So now we have the very, very simple pickup and delivery. Then we can set some conditions on departure. I'm going to set it to full. You can also set it to full of a specific product if you have multiple products. And the limestone is empty of all products, all the accepted product. This is how I do most of my setups. They're very simple. And then we can then make we now have this line. I want to call it limestone. There. And I will be making a train. So we go in here, and then we want to build a new train. It'll be a hydrogen train, and then 4 of these boxes. And I'm going to assign it to the new limestone, and we're going to build it. And of course, we're going to speed build it, and then we'll see that it rolls out. Here we go. The train has been built and is now coming onto the tracks. That's crazy. Why does it say no line? I did put it on a line. I put it on the limestone line. That's weird. Okay, anyway, well, it's coming out on the limestone line. Maybe I deselected it. So this will now go, this is the very, very basic stuff. This is just going back and forth between these two, and that works quite well for the first builds, but then things get difficult when you start, for example, looking at stuff like rocks, because, rock is something you probably have multiple pickup locations from everywhere that you mine, and you might want to have a single unload location. So how would that be done? Well, it's luckily possible, because here you can see that there are multiple locations that are grouped together. So you can basically use this one, add a station to the group, and you can see there's a coal mine, load rock from a coal mine, from copper mine, from gold mine, from a limestone mine, and you can then unload it at unload rock old dump, unload rock remote gold. So those are the locations that you can load at, and you add another one to a group. So if you just make another rock location, then you just add it to a group, and then they'll be taking one of these. If you want to make one of these more prioritized, then you can change it here in priority, and then it'll be taking that one first. So it works really well to get more advanced lines, which means that very, very simply you can make a many-to-many train network, which is something you can't really do easily in Factorio. You can do it better with the train limits. Well, you can do it quite well with train limits, but here it's really easy to group them together and basically say you can go to any of these locations and you can drop off at any of these locations. And then you can, for example, use these locations if you go here, and then you can use this to say, oh yeah, this unload location or this load location should only unload at this point. This is a, where are we? unload, yes. So this one just gets everything, but we might want to say sort of adjust priorities, like how many trains, it's how many goes in here. And then if you have like multiple trains going on this line, then they'll sort of distribute evenly. They'll distribute according to whichever request them because they are open, whichever request them or delivers because they are open, and then it'll balance out. However, there is more to that though, because what happens in this case when I have the stone network, rock network here, is that I actually end up having just way too many. And if one of these get retired, then suddenly I have too many trains, and they can get stuck because of the unload locations. And I've had issues where they got stuck at unload locations because there were just not enough rock generated. So there were no loading stations that requested it, which was really impractical. And that means that there still needed to sort of balance whether it was 10 or 12 or 14 trains that were sort of balancing to our needs. And there is a better way to do that, because if we just look at what we built here for our limestone, is that now we have a train that does nothing but limestone. It just goes back and forth, limestone back, limestone forth. It kind of sucks. And then we'd really want to have it like, then we have a full train that probably most of the time doesn't really do anything. Now you're just stuck in the network. That kind of sucks. It's waiting for a free track. Yep, there is a little bit of congestion. This is kind of what we see here. I think this congestion should fix itself. It should. Oh, no, it doesn't fix itself. This is because one of those trains was when we deleted the station. So I'm just going to delete that. Okay, so that was not a congestion base. That was a silly user operator error. But it's coming in, and basically with our... where's here? This one, the train. Oh, it's not coming in. But the train line here, this one for limestone. There, the limestone is now going back and forth. But what if I don't need one train? What if I need 0.2 trains to be operating this line? Wouldn't it then it's just wasted to have them sort of stuck in the network? So there is another way of having generic trains, a train network that can be assigned to any number of things, but not everything makes sense. This is one of my favorite stations. It's actually my first advanced station I made, which is really awesome. It just basically says, I have a lot of available stuff here, and I want to keep these going. This is just our food market, and we just have one train that just goes in here, picks up everything it can, and goes back to this city, and drops off whatever it can, and then goes back and forth. It's super nice, and it works really, really good. And after that, it has just been so easy. Once I solved this food thing, it was just amazing. And then we have like the most of that food, and then we have the butchery section is also over here. Who knows where it is? I don't know how. I can't find my way through the base. Oh, there it is. Here, the chicken farms. So the chicken farms are also a separate station with 3, and then they also go in here. So that is hard. But train network. How would that be? Well, it's particularly for the rock items, it would be nice to just have trains on standby and then send them out into a network whenever there's a demand for it. And that is luckily possible. Let's not use that, but let's use something as copper instead. Copper is probably a good candidate for it. This one is a station, and this one has linked one location here, that one. And then it says, okay, I actually want this to be completely full. That's 6,960 inbound. And I want it to be completely full. That means that anytime if I go, over here to network, this network tab, and I have a logistics train network assigned to it, a train network, then it will generate a train load in the network when it is possible to unload a full train. And so you can see that the train comes in here and it starts unloading, and we can see this box gets smaller, and as it sort of slides in here, we get more here. And then after this has been unloaded, this one has a train limit of 2. Oh, there we go. That was exactly the beautiful thing I wanted to see, was that it actually just generated a new load there. So it generated a new load that is coming in. So how does this work? This is beautiful, because now that means I have some generic trains that are just parked out here, and they are ready to be sent out and generate automatic transports. I have only done this for the bulk transfer because it just kind of makes sense, like dirt, rock, and then all the ores, iron, copper, limestone, uranium, gold, all the ores should go into this network because they can all be transported by bulk. So I have a bulk network. You could also have a solid network. You can have a liquid network. You maybe could even have a molten network if you have the DLC. I do not. So here you can see the trains are just pulling in. So let's have a look at how that works. It works by being controlled by this one, the logistics train network. If we look at here, we can now make a new line or we can make a new network. So let's have a look at the network build. So basically what it says, it has different things. It has cargo stations, which it doesn't really say if it's a load or an unload. It just says it's a station. Then you have fuel stations, which is where you can go to fuel. So you're not actually fueling at the waiting base. You are fueling at a dedicated station. So I have just built one fuel station. This is the one we have up here. So basically whenever one of these trains goes below 30% fuel, then they will be generating a transport directly to go into this one and just refuel and go back. So it'll be kind of going in, loop around, and then loop another round and go back in here. Something that's really important is that when we look at this, it took me a while to figure out, is the waiting bays. They are not stations. Waiting bays are not stations. They are waypoints. So under here, you have to do a waypoint. So you can see these are not like normal stations that are over here. That's a station, and these are waypoints. So these waypoints, and I just call them all waypoint station and mark it as one, because I only want one train parked on each of these. And you can see that they are now parked, and there we go. It generated a transport. We do not, well, it goes to rock coal mine. This one goes to load sand on second island, waiting for free trucks. And this is kind of what I said earlier about, like, sometimes they have to wait a little bit more, and then that can go out, and now you can go out. But it could maybe have gone a little bit closer, and we can do that by controlling these exclusive zones here. But that's basically how this one works. So we are going to say, okay, if you start by building the lines, which is, you can see here, I started by building the lines, and then I'm migrating over to a train network. So that means we actually have still limestone that we just built is on the network. You can see there's one train, but the sand doesn't have a train. But this limestone we built, let's try converting this over to be part of the logistics network, because I think that will just be, well, it'll just be better, because that's how we really want to see it. Let's go down here and see that we have 14 trains in the network. So if I go, because this is something you very often do, is a sort of like, oh, how can I transition from lines to networks? It's something that is a little troublesome. So here we'll kind of skip this when the lime doesn't work, but will then be part of the network. The network here, you can set the rules, and then yeah, every limestone wants to be exported. It has a maximum of 2. All of this is the same. It has one coming inbound, but it is not using, it's using the line rules here because it doesn't have the other network associated. So first I prepare the stations and the limestone here. And that one, and over on the network, I'm just saying, yes, fill it up. Good, so the stations are now ready. That means I can go into here, here, and I can then add 2 stations. I can add that one, and I can add the other one. And that is here. So now it should actually work. But what I also want to do is I also want to take this train and actually have you not do this anymore. And there's the thing, it already has limestone, so isn't that going to be bad? Yeah, well, I actually don't care. I just do that. And now what I've done is I have actually converted it. This one, yes, it does say that it has limestone here, but there are no trains running on this line, so I can kill that. Gone. I can even kill the sand one because no one's using that one either. I can't kill the gold one because it's still being used. But now this one is operating exclusively on the logistics train network. That's just what I called it, which is automatically set up to export everything it has, and the other one is also part of the network. This is set up to import everything, and when it drops below, it will generate a transport. But we do have an issue, right? Because I do have a train station that is full of limestone that's stuck somewhere in the network. The beautiful thing, and I deliberately did it like this, the beautiful thing is that it'll fix itself. Because this train is now hard-coded to be, it can only serve limestone, but it will also be prioritized to limestone. So whenever there is a limestone in the network, a demand in the network, this train will actually be taken, not one of the other ones. I suppose that you could actually use this to go fill up trains and have them parked full, and be available for drop-off locations. I have not experimented with it, but I would suppose that you could do that for if you wanted to do that. Oh, we're running out of mining locations. And then we just want to see that, confirm that it works. So when this one drops below at below 6,000, then it will it'll generate a new transport. As this threshold drops below 6,000, we should see a new transport being generated automatically just as soon as it drops below 6,000. Anytime. Oh man, it's beautiful. I love it when I predict something and it actually works. So you can see that the logistics train network is automatically generating as soon as it's possible, generating exactly enough to get in here. So it's beautiful, and that will be just basically how this train network works. So let's talk a little bit about the pros and cons of the logistics train network versus the other thing. So if you do a line network, let's use the gold as an example. I have my gold right here, and it's coming in. The train is sort of just kind of stuck because this one is just going back and forth. It goes between this location and the contract location here where I get the gold. Now that's super easy and convenient, even though it's a stupid long train path, but whatever. Then it doesn't really generate anything in the network, any traffic in the network. But because it goes from A to B to A to B, so it just goes back and forth. And even though it covers a lot of tracks, it's just only goes back and forth when it needs to. However, if I'm converting this into a logistics train network, then what will happen is that this train will be part of the network, and it'll then go over here, and it'll wait. And then when it gets summoned, it'll go in here, and then it'll go do the unload, and then it'll go back. So in this case, it's not really very much because it's kind of on the way. So it's not really a good example. But if I'm bringing something, a copper, from here to this location here, which is my copper inbound, and this is the copper outbound, then having the train go all the way over and park here and then come out to do the delivery. So if I had a direct delivery, it would go from pickup to delivery and back again, which means that it would only use this part of the track, but now it also has to use this part of the track. So it goes ABC instead of AB, and therefore you will, with logistics train, you will be generating more traffic in the network, particularly in the area around your loading bay or your waiting bay. And you can have multiple waiting bays, and that will sort of alleviate it, but there will be generated more train transport in the network if you have multiple if you have used the logistics train network. That's just the way it is, because they have to go to the waiting station. But on the other hand, the advantage is also like you have one central fuel location. That's really nice. You can control everything by threshold, and then it'll sort of magically do it itself. This is what I'm going to do in the future playthroughs, is just controlling everything through these thresholds, like, okay, bring it in or deliver it, and balancing out and just using less trucks everywhere. And I think that will give you a lot of flexibility on how to do it. And you should have, in my opinion at least, you should have your trains on separate networks, one for bulk, one for solid, and one for liquid, so that they don't mix up. They won't really be mixing up, but I think that it's kind of keeping it clear that you have a bulk network and you have a solid network. And then there are some things that just simply go from A to B. Like in my case, like my food factory here goes to the city, and that's it. It never goes back and forth, never goes anywhere else. And then I can just have it on a line. So I think that you can combine both the line rules and the network rules in the same overall network and convert it, and it makes sense. And it just showed how easily it converts even when the trains are full, which is something that Factorio doesn't do very well. When you start sort of converting from one network to another, it just kind of goes haywire, at least for me. But I'm also not very experienced with Factorio trains, so that might be it. So I think that overall, if you look at this, the train network, I built this a little bit haphazardly, but I think it actually works really well for my base, and I think I learned some very valuable lessons. One of the things I've learned is that elevated tracks are really good for main lines, because you can then share locations between both the tracks and the trucks, and that's actually really convenient in all stages of the game. So I really like my elevated main lines, and then I'll keep sort of the branches at the ground level, like I'm going to do here, and only keep the main lines at the high level. That's one thing I've learned. I've also learned the value of this logistics network, and I think that's something I definitely will use a lot more. What I've also learned is that some of the things that I just never planned for, that is absolutely must have to have on a network. I didn't plan for dirt until the very end, so a lot of the dirt is transported by trucks, and slag is the bigger issue. Like anywhere that you have slag, you really should put it on a train, because you generate absurd amounts of slag, plus you want to convert the slag into sour water, and then have sort of another station that is lower priority where you maybe dump it or store it or whatever you want. And I'm using most of, I think it's the busiest here is probably, yeah, hydrogen and slag. Those are the two things that I would highly recommend to get to prepare for. So anything that requires hydrogen, anything that requires slag or produces slag should be designed to facilitate trains. I would also generally say that if you can get to a point where you have everything on the train network, that's going to be absolutely amazing. Because if you look at like random builds, then let's just take a glass build. Like you just need some random crap for the glass build. You need some limestone, and here I'm bringing it in by truck, and you need some salt, and you need some sulfur, and you need some broken glass, you need some coal, and then you have the slag outbound, and you have the glass outbound. Like if you could, and also have graphite outbound because of the pollution cleaning. And also sand inbound, like lots and lots of sand. So I'm thinking, like, would it be possible to just, instead of having these come in by trucks, but having like a big train station with different number of loading stations depending on this, just simply requesting whatever is needed here, and then the train comes in with salt once in a while, and it comes in with sulfur once in a while. And I would love that idea, because that means that it doesn't have to be close. It could be built wherever we want, because I just need to hook it up to the train station, and then as long as everything else is on the network. The problem is when nothing is on the network, then you can't start converting it, because I have limestone on the network, but I don't have any place. I have coal on the network, but I don't have anywhere to get it in. And that's going to be, I don't have glass on the network, and then I want to get all the stuff out here that I've now built on a sort of, there's a bus here, but there's also a lot of things coming in by trucks, like for example silicon poly, then that would also be something that would be nice to have on a train network. I don't know if I want to go all in with that, but it would be kind of sexy to have like a full train network that just does everything by train. But it's also like a monstrous effort, because that means you could sort of take your steel facility and build it wherever you want it, instead of having it sort of embedded into the base here and generate an awful lot of slag that has to be transported by trucks. So big learning is to build more towards trains, whether I'm going to go all in, but definitely something like hydrogen and slag, diesel in the mid game is probably also a good thing to keep available on trains. Maybe if you build your steel, then get the steel to everywhere else, and anything that's high quantity, put it on a train network. Glass, another good candidate. You maybe even make separate electronics factories, or maybe make separate factories for your construction parts, and bring all the stuff in by trains, because it actually isn't that many things you need to bring in. You need to build concrete, and you need to build wood, and then get the steel in, and then additional electronics, more steel. Yeah, okay, more steel, and then more electronics. So if you can get those on a station, then you can actually build a factory that makes electronics parts, which would be really cool to have. So definitely cool thing. Maybe even recyclables might also be something where everywhere you build recyclables, you can put that on a train, and then put it on a train to a separate recycling facility that can then send out. So definitely want to do this. I think one of the other things is the combination of trains combined with contracts is insanely powerful. Like how easy this design is to stamp down. This is like a template where you just stamp it down, and then you have a train coming in here, picking up all of the materials, and then it's coming in small quantities of servers coming in, and then large quantities of bulk coming back out, and just need to put it on the train network, and then it'll find itself. You can even go so far as to sort of build this as different priorities, so that you can say, okay, do I want this before the asteroid or the iron asteroid? Well, maybe I want to do the iron asteroid first, and then only do this one as a backup. That's super cool, and something I really love, and something I really want to explore further, like having like a big industrial harbor with branches off. Maybe not like this, maybe it could be sort of a little bit more space optimized than this, but definitely a great idea to combine contracts and trains. And so that's basically all I wanted to explain in this tutorial on trains and in Captain of Industry. I think that trains are amazing, and I know I was skeptical first, and I think that the biggest problem that is keeping us from trains being super insanely awesome is the fact that we have a difficult time getting lots of flat terrain in Captain Industry, and because of that difficulty it gets a little bit more complicated to actually build trains earlier. You can do it late game like this, but this is very late game. Like, oh, we're just on infinite tech and just automating rocket science and all that stuff. So it's very late game that we have abundant flat space to just build everything on train networks. And in the beginning, you just really don't have the space to build the giant train stations, especially if you don't want to build it on a grid. And I think that's the biggest sort of challenge of implementing a train network early or in the mid game, is that you just don't have the space for it. So you got to get started on your landfilling early and allocate a lot of resources to landfilling. Like I'm just carving out this mountain and just pouring it into the ocean. And later on, you can also just summon asteroids just to get more stone to fill up. But again, that's way too late. And I wish we could get started on trains earlier, but it's just difficult because there's not enough space. So it's something I'm going to think about for the next episode, or not the next episode, but the next series, which will be, I don't know, when 1.0 comes out, I guess. That would be when we start a new series. I still really enjoy Captain Industry. I think it's still a game that is too difficult for its own good, and therefore it's appealing to a niche market. But I'm having a lot of fun with it, and I really wish we could also just continue beyond the late game and just convert the whole base into a train base. But I don't think that's realistic viewer-wise or effort-wise. So we'll be putting it on the shelf, unfortunately, and then coming back to it with reinvigorated interest when new stuff is being added for 1.0, whenever that comes out. Thank you very much for watching. Remember, all the designs or save games are available to Patreon supporters, so thank you very much everyone who is supporting on Patreon and supporting the channel and the work I do here. Thank you very much. Until next time, take care and stay effective.